Welcome back, Crow Nation. I'm Skylar Jenkins.
And I'm Pat McGuire.
And welcome back to KL Insider. Sorry, Zoltan, this beginning is not going to be as funny as the last one. I only got a couple jokes. I don't know. So what we're going to go over is we are officially a month away from preseason. So we're going to start getting into it. We're going to talk about the last minute pickups. We're going to talk about the best moves by the teams. And then we're going to talk about yesterday's question, which we posted up. If you could start your own KL team with any three players, who would you choose as your crosser, ranger, and wedgeback? And let's get started.
So we have an announcement on two rookies that have been picked up. The Workhorses are adding Joe McCuster to their roster. He's 6'2" and 200 pounds, and he has a background in basketball. And the Evergreens, they're adding Sean Sheridan, who will serve as a backup ranger coming off the bench.
So the team that I think made the best moves for KL5 would be the Workhorses. Although they lost Phil Cavalcante, who was a big leader and a big influence and a big player on their team, they totally revamped it. It's totally new. And that's exactly what they needed. They weren't getting anywhere after the 4 seasons. And so I think this was the best move in KL5. I'm glad that Richie is stepping up. He's ready to guide this team and really flip it around. And he's ready to work hard, and that's the Workhorses mentality. They pulled in a bunch of defense, and that's going to help them at least stay strong until they can get all their chemistry together. Although they looked really, really good at the Winter Classic, I'm sure they're going to have no problem jumping into preseason. But we'll have to see how they play against the other teams. I'm just excited that it's a whole new team, and I can't wait to see them start the league.
The team I thought made the best moves this offseason, I'm choosing the throwbacks. I love that they traded for Mike Small, Matt Sola, and Drew Amoroso. These are 3 guys that do a lot of scoring. And the throwbacks, as a team, they lost 5 games last season by 10 points or less. And they're hoping that these guys can come in and help bridge that gap so they win a lot more games.
I'll start with Jake Murray. Jake Murray picked Scott Kennedy for crosser, Kyle McGrath as ranger, and Pete Weiss as wedgeback. All I got to say about that is I wouldn't put Kennedy and McGrath on the same team. I don't know if there would be any good chemistry that would happen.
Matthias on Facebook, he sent in his picks. He chooses Scott Kennedy as a crosser, Kyle McGrath as a ranger, and Vince Rhoda in wedgeback. I thought it was a bit of a surprise to see Vince Rhoda in wedgeback.
From Steve Martin, he's one of my players. He's new this year. He decided to pick crosser, Hunter Polanski, who also plays on my team. He picked ranger, Skylar Jenkins, and wedgeback, Mason Rowe. All I have to say is I would not pick Skylar Jenkins as ranger. He's just god-awful.
And Mike Quintons from the Jet Sets has his picks. And surprise, surprise, it's Matt Parsons at crosser, Steve Vandenberg at ranger, and Zach Van Fossen as a wedgeback.
From Dylan Kaiser, another Towson player, he picked Scott Kennedy as crosser, Scott Davis as ranger, and he picked himself as wedgeback. It's a pretty bold move there.
Zoltan, he picked Joe Farino, Kyle McGrath, and Ben Hutchinson. Hutch is one of the scariest wedgebacks in the league, so that's a good pick. And a bit of surprise with Joe Farino, but Zoltan is a huge throwbacks fan, so that's probably why he picked him.
My answer to the question would have to be Ryan Skinner as crosser, Kevin Clark as ranger, and Pete Weiss as wedgeback.
And as for my picks, I'm going to go with Scott Kennedy as a crosser, Mike Small as a ranger, and wedgeback. I was between Bob Zane and Ryan Malley, but I think I'm going to go with Ryan Malley because he has a better backdoor presence. So we are 4 weeks away from the first preseason round, and we actually just got updates today on the schedule. So round 1, the first game is going to be the Evergreens versus the Jet Sets. The second game is going to be Nibblejacks versus Night Owls, a rematch of last year's championship. The third game is going to be Throwbacks versus Jet Sets, a good old rivalry. And the last game is Workhorses versus Urban Legends.
So thanks for tuning in again to KL Insider. For the next 4 weeks, we're going to be talking about the lead up to preseason, and we're going to talk about our predictions. We'd love to hear yours so that we can feature them on the show and talk about them. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Skylar Jenkins,
And I'm Pat McGuire.
and we'll see you around.